And it came to pass after these things that all the counselors of Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, and all the elders of Mitzrayim assembled and came before the king and bowed down to the ground. And they sat before him. And the counselors and elders of Mitzrayim spoke unto the king, saying, Behold, the people of the children of Yisrael is greater and mightier than we are. And you know all the evil which they did to us in the road when we returned from battle. And you have also seen their strong power, for this power is unto them from their fathers. For but a few men stood up against a people, numerous as the sand, and smote them at the edge of the sword, and of themselves not one has fallen. So that if they had been numerous, they would have utterly destroyed them. Now, therefore, give us counsel what to do with them until we gradually destroy them from amongst us, lest they become too numerous for us in the land. For if the children of Yisrael should increase in the land, they will become an obstacle to us. And if any war should happen to take place, they, with their great strength, will join our enemy against us and fight against us, destroy us from the land, and go away from it. So the king answered the elders of Mitzrayim and said unto them, This is the plan advised against Yisrael, from which we will not depart. Behold, in the land are Pithom and Rameses, cities unfortified against battle. It behooves you and us to build them and to fortify them. Now therefore go you also and act cunningly towards them, and proclaim a voice in Mitzrayim and Goshen at the command of the king, saying, All ye men of Mitzrayim, Goshen, Pathrak, and all their inhabitants, the king has commanded us to build Pithom and Rameses, and fortify them for battle. Who amongst you of all Mitzrayim, of the children of Yisrael, and of all the inhabitants of the cities, are willing to build with us, shall each have his wages given to him daily at the king's order. So go ye first and do cunningly, and gather yourselves and come to Pithom and Rameses to build. And while you are building, cause a proclamation of this kind to be made throughout Mitzrayim every day at the command of the king. And when some of the children of Yisrael shall come to build with you, you shall give them their wages daily for a few days. And after they shall have built with you for their daily hire, drag yourselves away from them daily, one by one, in secret. And then you shall rise up and become their taskmasters and officers, and you shall leave them afterwards to build without wages, and they, should they refuse, then force them with all your might to build. And if you do this, it will be well with us to strengthen our land against the children of Yisrael. For on account of the fatigue of the building and the work, the children of Yisrael will decrease, because you will deprive them from their women day by day. And all the elders of Mitzrayim heard the counsel of the king, and the counsel seemed good in their eyes, and in the eyes of their servants of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all Mitzrayim. And they did according to the word of the king. And all the servants went away from the king, and they caused a proclamation to be made in all Mitzrayim and Tachpanach and in Goshen and all the cities which surrounded Mitzrayim, saying, You have seen what the children of Esau and Yishmael did to us, who came to war against us and wished to destroy us. Now, therefore, the king commanded us to fortify the land, to build the cities Pithom and Rameses, and to fortify them for battle, if they should again come against us. Whosoever of you from all Mitzrayim and from the children of Yisrael will come to build with us, he shall have his daily wages given by the king, as his command is unto us. And when Mitzrayim and all the children of Yisrael heard that the servants of Pharaoh had spoken, there came from the Mitzrayim and the children of Yisrael to build with the servants of Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramesses. But none of the children of Levi came with their brethren to build. And all the servants of Pharaoh and the princes came at first with deceit to build with all Yisrael as daily hire laborers, and they gave to Yisrael their daily hire at the beginning. And the servants of Pharaoh built with all Yisrael and were employed in that work with Yisrael for a month. And at the end of the month, all the servants of Pharaoh began to withdraw secretly from the people of Yisrael daily. And Yisrael went on with the work at that time, but they then received their daily hire, because some of the men of Mitzrayim were yet carrying on the work with Yisrael at that time. Therefore, the Mitzrayim gave Yisrael their hire in those days, in order that they, the Mitzrayim, their fellow workmen, might also take the pay for their labor. And at the end of a year and 4 months, all Mitzrayim had withdrawn from the children of Yisrael, so that the children of Yisrael were left alone, engaged in the work. And after all the Mitzrayim had withdrawn from the children of Yisrael, they returned and became oppressors and officers over them. And some of them stood over the children of Yisrael as taskmasters to receive from them all they had give them for the pay of their labor. And the Mitzrayim did in this manner to the children of Yisrael day by day, in order to afflict in their work. And all the children of Yisrael were alone engaged in the labor, and Mitzrayim refrained from giving any pay to the children of Yisrael from that time forward. And when some of the men of Yisrael refused to work on account of the wages not being given to them, then the exactors and the servants of Pharaoh oppressed them and smote them with heavy blows, and made them return by force to labor with their brethren. Thus did all the Mitzrayim into the children of Yisrael in those days. And all the children of Yisrael were greatly afraid of the Mitzrayim in this manner. And all the children of Yisrael returned and worked alone without pay. And the children of Yisrael built Pithom and Ramesses, and all the children of Yisrael did the work, some making bricks and some building. And the children of Yisrael built and fortified the land of Mitzrayim and its walls, and the children of Yisrael were engaged in work for many years, until the time came when Yahuwah remembered them and brought them out of Mitzrayim. But the children of Levi were not employed in the work with their brethren of Yisrael from the beginning unto the day of their going forth from Mitzrayim. For all the children of Levi knew that the Mitzrayim had spoken these words with deceit to Yisrael. Therefore, the children of Levi refrained from approaching to the work with their brethren. And the Mitzrayim did not direct their attention to make the children of Levi work afterwards, since they had not been with their brethren at the beginning. Therefore, the Mitzrayim left them alone. And the hands of the men of Mitzrayim were directed with continued severity against the children of Yisrael in the work, and Mitzrayim made the children of Yisrael work with rigor, and the Mitzrayim embittered the lives of the children of Yisrael with hard work in mortar and bricks, and also in all manner of work in the field. And the children of Yisrael called Moelel, the king of Mitzrayim, Meror, king of Mitzrayim, because in his days the Mitzrayim had embittered their lives with all matter of work. And all the work wherein the Mitzrayim made the children of Yisrael labor, they exacted with rigor in order to afflict the children of Yisrael. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and the Mitzrayim were grieved because of the children of Yisrael. At that time died Hadad, the son of Bedad, king of Edom, and Samlah from Mesrekah, from the country of the children of the east, reigned in his place. In the 13th year of the reign of Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, which was the 125th year of Yisrael going down to Mitzrayim, Samlah had reigned over Edom 18 years. And when his reign, he drew forth his host to go and fight against Tesopho, the son of Eliphaz, and the children of Kithiam, because they had made war against Angus, king of Africa, and they destroyed his whole army. But he did not engage with them, for the children of Esau prevented him, saying, he was their brother. So Samlah listened to the voice of the children of Esau, and turned back with all his forces to the land of Edom, and did not proceed to fight against Tesopho, the son of Eliphaz. The Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, heard this thing, saying, Samlah, king of Edom, has resolved to fight the children of Kittim, and afterwards he will come to fight against Mitzrayim. And when the Mitzrayim heard this matter, they increased the labor upon the children of Yisrael, lest Yisrael should do unto them as they had done unto them in their war with the children of Esau in the days of Hadad. So the Mitzrayim said unto the children of Yisrael, hasten and do your work and finish your tasks and strengthen the land, lest the children of Esau, your brethren, should come to fight against us, for on your account will they come against us. And the children of Yisrael did the work of the men of Mitzrayim day by day, and the Mitzrayim afflicted the children of Yisrael in order to lessen them in the land. But as the Mitzrayim increased the labor upon the children of Yisrael, so did the children of Yisrael increase and multiply. And all Mitzrayim was filled with the children of Yisrael. And in the 125th year of Yisrael's going down unto Mitzrayim, all the Mitzrayim saw that their counsel did not succeed against Yisrael, but that they increased and grew, and the land of Mitzrayim and the land of Goshen were filled with the children of Yisrael. So all the elders of Mitzrayim and its wise men came before the king and bowed down to him and sat before him. And all the elders of Mitzrayim and the wise men thereof said unto the king, may the king live forever. You did counsel us the counsel against the children of Yisrael, and we did unto them according to the word of the king. But in proportion to the increase of the labor, so do they increase and grow in the land. And behold, the whole country is filled with them. Now, therefore, our Lord and King, the eyes of all Mitzrayim are upon you to give them advice with your wisdom, by which they may prevail over Yisrael, to destroy them and to diminish them from the land. And the king answered them, saying, give you counsel in this matter, that we may know what to do unto them. And an officer, one of the king's counselors, whose name was Oiov, from Arab Naraim in the land of Uz, answered the king, saying, if it please the king, let him hear the counsel of his servant. And the king said unto him, speak. And Oiov spoke before the king, the princes, and before all the elders of Mitzrayim, saying, behold, the counsel of the king, which he advised formerly respecting the labor of the children of Yisrael, is very good. And you must not remove them that labor forever. But this is the advice counseled by which you may lessen them, if it seems good to the king to afflict them. Behold, we have feared war for a long time, and we said, when Yisrael becomes fruitful in the land, they will drive us from the land if the war should take place. If it please the king, let a royal decree go forth, and let it be written in the laws of Mitzrayim, which shall not be revoked, that every male child born unto Yasrael, his blood shall be spilt upon the ground. And by your doing this, when all the male children of Yasrael shall have died, the evil of their wars will cease. Let the king do so and send for all the every midwives and order them in this matter to execute it. So the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Oyov. And the king sent for the every midwives to be called, of which the name of one was Shephrah, and the name of the other Puah. And the midwives came before the king and stood in his presence. And the king said to them, when you do the office of a midwife to the Evereth woman, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But if you will not do this thing, then I will burn you up and all your houses with fire. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not hearken to the king of Mitzrayim, nor to his words. And when the Evereth woman brought forth to the midwife son or daughter, then did the midwife do all that was necessary to the child and let it live. Thus did the midwives all the days. And this thing was told to the king, and he sent and called for the midwives, and he said to them, why have you done this thing and have saved the children alive? And the midwives answered and spoke together before the king, saying, let not the king think that the every women are as the Mitzrayim's women, for all the children of Yasrael are lively, and before the midwife comes to them, they are delivered. And as for us, your handmaids, for many days no every woman has brought forth upon us, for all the Evereth women are their own midwives, because they are lively. And Pharaoh heard their words and believed them in this matter. And the midwives went away from the king, and Elohim dealt well with them, and the people multiplied and waxed exceedingly. There was a man in the land of Mitzrayim of the seed of Levi, whose name was Abraham, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and the son of Yasrael. And this man went and took a woman, namely Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, his father's sister, and she was one of 26 years old, and he came to her. And the woman conceived and bore a daughter, and she called her name Miriam, because in those days the Mitzrayim had embittered the lives of the children of Yasrael. And she conceived again and bore a son and called his name Aharon. And in those days of her conception, Pharaoh began to spill the blood of the male children of Yasrael. In those days died Tesopho, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, king of Kittim, and Janice reigned in his stead. And the time that Tesopho reigned over the children of Kittim was 50 years, and he died and was buried in the city of Nabna, and the land of Kittim. And Janias, one of the mighty men of the children of Kittim, reigned after him, and he reigned 50 years. And it was after the death of the king of Kittim that Balaam, the son of Beor, fled from the land of Kittim, and he went and came to Mitzrayim to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh received him with great honor, for he had heard of his wisdom, and he gave him presents and made him for a counselor and aggrandized him. And Balaam dwelt in Mitzrayim in honor with all the nobles of the kings, and the nobles exalted him because they all coveted to learn his wisdom. And in the 113th year of Yasrael's going down to Mitzrayim, Pharaoh dreamed that he was sitting upon his kingly throne, and lifted up his eyes and saw an old man standing before him. And there were scales in the hands of the old man. Such scales are used by merchants. And the old man took the scales and hung them before Pharaoh. And the old man took all the elders of Mitzrayim and all its nobles and great men, and he tied them together and put them in one scale. And he took a milk kid and put it on the other scale. And the kid prepondered over all. And Pharaoh was astonished at this dreadful vision, why the kid should preponderate over all. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And Pharaoh rose up early in the morning and called all his servants and related to them the dream. And the men were greatly afraid. And the king said to all his wise men, "Interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dream, that I may know." And Balaam the son of Beor answered the king and said unto him, "This means nothing else but a great evil that will spring up against Mitzrayim in the latter days. For a son will be born to Yasrael, who will destroy all Mitzrayim and its inhabitants, and bring forth Yasrael from Mitzrayim with a mighty hand. Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Yasrael and their expectation before this evil arise against Mitzrayim." And the king said to Balaam, "And what shall we do unto Yasrael? Surely after a certain matter did we at first counsel against them, and could not prevail over them. Now, therefore, give you also advice against them, by which we may prevail over them." And Balaam answered the king, saying, "Send now and call 2 counselors, and we will see what their advice is upon this matter, and afterwards your servant will speak." And the king sent and called his 2 counselors, Reuel, the Midianite, and Iov, and Utzi, and they came and sat before the king. And the king said to them, "Behold, you have both heard the dream which I have dreamed, and the interpretation thereof. Now, therefore, give counsel, and know and see what is to be done to the children of Yasrael, whereby we may prevail over them before their evil shall spring up against us." And Reuel, the Midianite, answered the king and said, may the king live forever. If it seem good to the king, let him desist from the Ephraim and leave them, and let them not stretch forth his hand against them. For these are they whom Yahweh chose in the days of old, and took as the lot of his inheritance from amongst all nations of the earth and the kings of the earth. And who is there that stretched his hand against them with impunity, of whom their Elohim was not avenged? Surely you know that when Abram went down from Mitzrayim, Pharaoh, the former king of Mitzrayim, saw Sarah his woman, and took her for a woman, because Abram said, "She is my sister." For he was afraid lest the men of Mitzrayim should slay him on account of his woman. And when the king of Mitzrayim had taken Sarah, then Elohim smote him and his household with heavy plagues, until he restored unto Abraham his woman Sarah, and was he healed. And Avimelech and Gerari, king of Pelishtim, Elohim punished on account of Sarah's woman of Abraham, and stopping up every womb from the man to beast. When their Elohim came to Avimelech in the dream of night, and terrified him, in order that he might restore Abraham Sarah, whom he had taken. And afterward all the people of Gerar were punished on account of Sarah, and Abraham prayed to his Elohim for them, and he was entreated of him, and he healed them. And Avimelech feared all this evil that came upon him and his people, and he returned to Abraham his woman Sarah, and gave him with her many gifts. So did also to Yitzchak, when he had driven him from Gerar, and Elohim had done wonderful things to him. that all the water courses of Gerar were dried up, and their productive trees did not bear forth, until Abimelech and Gerar and Achuzaz, one of his friends, and Pichol, the captain of his host, went to him, and they bent and bowed down before him to the ground. And they requested of him to supplicate for them, and he prayed to Yahweh for them, and Yahweh was entreated of him, and he healed them. And Yaakov also, the plain man, was delivered through his integrity from the hand of his brother Esau, and the land of Laban and Arami, and his mother's brother, who had sought his life, likewise from the hand of all the kings of Canaan, who had come together against him and his children to destroy them. And Yahweh delivered them from out of their hands, and they returned upon them and smote them, for who had ever stretched forth his hand against them with impunity? Surely Pharaoh the former, your father's father, raised Joseph, the son of Yaakov, above all the princes of the land of Mizraim, when he saw his wisdom, for through his wisdom he rescued all the inhabitants of the land of the famine, after which he ordered Yaakov and his children to come down to Mizraim in order that through their virtue the land of Mizraim and the land of Goshen might be delivered from the famine. Now, therefore, if it seem good in your eyes, cease from destroying the children of Yisrael. But if it be not your will that they shall dwell in Mitzrayim, send them forth from here, that they may go to the land of Canaan, and the land where their ancestors sojourned. And when Pharaoh heard of the words of Jethro, he was very angry with him, so that he arose with shame from the king's presence, and went to Midian, his land, and took Joseph's stick with him. And the king said to Iyov, the Utsi, what say you, Iyov? And what is your advice respecting the Ephraim? So Iyov said to the king, behold, all the inhabitants of the land are in your power. Let the king do as it seems good in his eyes. And the king said to Bilam, what do you say, Bilam? Speak your word that we may hear it. And Bilam said to the king, of all that the king has counseled against the Ephraim, will they be delivered, and the king will not be able to prevail over them with any counsel. For if you think to lessen them by flaming fire, you cannot prevail over them. For surely their Elohim delivered Abram, their father, from Ur of the Kitzdim. And if you think to destroy them with a sword, surely Yitzchak, their father, was delivered from it, and a ram was placed in his stead. And if with hard and rigorous labor you think to lessen them, you will not prevail even in this, for their father Yaakov served Laban and all the manner of hard work and prospered. Now therefore, O king, hear my words, for this is the counsel which is counseled against them, by which you will prevail over them, and from which you should not depart. If it please the king, let him order all the children which shall be born from this day forward to be thrown into the water, for by this can you wipe away their name, for none of them, nor of their fathers, were tried in this manner. And the king heard the words of Bilam, and the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Bilam. And the king ordered a proclamation to be issued, and a law to be made throughout the land of Mitzrayim, saying, every male child born to the Ephraim from this day forward shall be thrown into the water. And the Pharaoh called unto his servants, saying, go now and seek throughout the land of Goshen, where the children of Yisrael are, and see that every son born to the Ephraim shall be cast into the river, but every daughter you shall let live. And when the king of Yisrael heard this thing which Pharaoh had commanded to cast their male children into the river, some of the people separated from their women, and others adhered to them. And from that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Yasrael who had remained with their men, they went to the field to bring forth there, and they brought forth in the field, and left their children upon the field, and returned home. And Yahuwah, who had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels, which are in heaven, to wash each child in water, to anoint and swathe it, and to put into his hands two smooth stones, from one of which it sucked milk, and from the other honey. And he caused its hair to grow to its knees, by which it might cover itself, to comfort it, and to cleave to it, through its compassion for it. And when Elohim had compassion over them, and had desired to multiply them, on the face of the land, he ordered his earth to receive them, to be preserved therein till the time of their growing up, after which the earth opened its mouth and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like the herb of the earth and the grass of the forest, and they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with them. And the babes of the children of Yasrael were upon the earth like the herb of the field, through Elohim's grace to them. And when all the Mitzrayim saw this thing, they went forth, each to his field with his yoke of oxen and his plowshare, and they plowed it up as one plows the earth at seed time. And when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Yasrael. So the people increased and waxed exceedingly. And Pharaoh ordered his officers daily to go to Goshen to seek for the babes of the children of Yasrael. And when they had sought and found one, they took it from its mother's bosom by force and threw it in the river. But the female child they left with its mother. They did the Mitzrayim to Yasrael all the days. And it was at that time the Ruach Elohim was upon Miriam, the daughter of Amram, the sister of Aharon. And she went forth and prophesied about the house, saying, Behold, a son will be born unto us from my father and mother this time, and he will save Yasrael from the hands of Mitzrayim. And when Amram heard the words of his daughter, he went and took his woman back to the house after he had driven her away at the time when Pharaoh ordered every male child of the house of Yaakov to be thrown into the water. So Amram took Jochebed, his woman, 3 years after he had driven her away, and he came to her, and she conceived. And at the end of the 7 months from her conception, she brought forth a son, and the whole house was filled with great lights, as of the light of the sun and moon at the time of their shining. And when the woman saw that the child, that it was good and pleasing to the sight, she hid it for 3 months in an inner room. And in those days, Mitzrayim conspired to destroy all the Abrim there. And the Mitzrayim woman went to Goshen, where the children of Yasrael were. And they carried their young ones upon their shoulders, and their babes who could not speak yet. And in those days, when the women of the children of Yasrael brought forth, each woman had hidden her son from before the Mitzrayim, and the Mitzrayim may not know of their bringing forth, and might not destroy them from the land. And the Mitzrayim women came to Goshen, and their children who could not speak were upon their shoulders. And when the Mitzri woman came into the house of the every woman, her babe began to cry. And when it cried, the child that was in the inner room answered it. So the Mitzrayim woman went and told it at the house of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh sent his officers to take the children and slay them. Thus did the Mitzrayim to the Ebrith woman in all days. And it was at the time about 3 months from Jochebed's concealment of her son that the thing was known in Pharaoh's house. And the woman hastened to take away her son before the officers came, and she took for them an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the reeds by the river brink. And his sister Marian stood afar off to know what would be done to him, and what would become of her words. And Elohim sent forth at that time a terrible heat in the land of Mitzrayim, which burnt up flesh of man like the sun in its circuit, and it greatly oppressed the Mitzrayim. And all the Mitzrayim went down to bathe in the river on account of the consuming heat, which burnt up their flesh. And Bathia, the son of Pharaoh, went also to bathe in the river, owing to the consuming heat. And her maidens walked at the riverside, and all the women of Mitzrayim as well. And Bathia lifted up her eyes to the river, and she saw the ark upon the water, and sent her maid to fetch it. And she opened it and saw the child, and behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion on him, and she said, "This is one of the Every children." And all the women of Mitzrayim, walking on the riverside, desired to give him suck, but he would not suck, for this thing was from Yahweh, in order to restore him to his mother's breast. And Miriam, his sister, was at the time amongst the Mitzrayim women at the riverside, and she saw this thing, and she said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and fetch a nurse of the Everith women, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to Jochebed, "Take this child away and suckle it for me, and I will pay you for your wages, 2 bits of silver daily." And the woman took the child and nursed it. The child grew up, and in the end of the 2 years, when the child grew up, she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh, and he was unto her as a son. And she called his name Moshe, for she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." And Amram, his father, called his name Kabar, for he said, "It was for him that he associated with his woman whom he had turned away." And Jochebed, his mother, called his name Yakuleel, because she said, "I have hoped for him to El Shaddai, and Elohim restored unto me him." And Miriam, his sister, called him Yared, for she descended after him to the river to know what his end would be. And Aharon, his brother, called his name Avi Zanuch, saying, "My father left my mother and returned to her on his account." And Ohath, the father of Amram, called his name Abigdor, because on account did Elohim repair the breach of the house of Yaakov, that they could no longer throw their male children into the water. And their nurse called him Avi Sokol, saying, "In his tabernacle was he hidden for 3 months on account of the children of Ham." And all the Yasrael called his name Shemayahu, son of Nathaniel, for they said, "In his days has Elohim heard their cries and rescued them from their oppressors." And Moshe was in Pharaoh's house, and was unto Bathia, Pharaoh's daughter, as a son, and Moshe grew up amongst the king's children. And the king of Edom died in those days, in the 18th year of his reign, and was buried in his temple, which he had built for himself as his royal residence in the land of Edom. And the children of Esau sent to Pethor, which is upon the river, and they fetched from there a young man of beautiful eyes and comely aspect, whose name was Shaul, and they made him king over them in the place of Shamlah. And Shaul reigned over all the children of Esau in the land of Edom 40 years. And when Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, saw that the counsel which Bilam had advised respecting the children of Yasrael did not succeed, but that they still were fruitful, multiplied, and increased throughout the land of Mitzrayim, Then Pharaoh commanded in those days that a proclamation should be issued throughout Mitzrayim to the children of Yisrael, saying, no man shall diminish anything of his daily labor. And the man who shall be found deficient in his labor, which he performs daily, whether in mortar or in bricks, when his youngest son shall be put in their place, and the labor of Mitzrayim strengthened upon the children of Yisrael in those days. And behold, if one brick was deficient in any man's daily labor, the Mitzrayim took his youngest boy by force from his mother and put him into the building in the place of the brick which his father had left wanting. And the men of Mitzrayim did so to all the children of Yisrael day by day, all the days for a long period. But the tribe of Levi did not at that time work with Yisrael, their brethren, from the beginning, for the children of Levi knew the cunning of the Mitzrayim, which they exercised at first towards Yisrael. And in the third year from the birth of Moshe, Pharaoh was sitting at a banquet when Alparnith, the queen, was sitting at his right and Bethia at his left, and the lad Moshe was laying upon her bosom. And Bilam, the son of Beor, with his two sons and all the princes of the kingdom were sitting at his table in the king's presence. And the lad stretched forth his hand upon the king's head, and took the crown from the king's head, and placed it on his own head. And when the king and the princes saw the work which the boy had done, the king and princes were terrified. And one man to his neighbor expressed astonishment. And the king said unto the princes who were before him at the table, what speak you, and what say you, O ye princes, in this manner? And what is to be the judgment against the boy on account of this act? And Bilam, the son of Beor, the magician, answered before the king and princes, and he said, remember now, O my lord and king, the dream which you did dream many days since, and that which your servant interpreted unto you. Now therefore, this is a child from the every children, in whom the Ruach Elohim, and let not my lord the king imagine that this youngster did this thing without knowledge. For he is an every boy, and wisdom and understanding are with him, although he is yet a child, and with wisdom has he done this, and chosen unto himself the king of Mitzrayim. For this is the manner of all the Ephraim, to deceive kings and their nobles, to do all things cunningly, in order to make the king of the earth and their men tremble. Surely you know that Abram, their father, acted thus, who deceived the army of Nimrod, king of Babel, Avimelech, king of Gerar, and that he possessed himself of the land of the children of Heth, and all the kingdoms of Canaan, and that he descended unto Mitzrayim, and said of Sarah his woman, she is my sister, in order to mislead Mitzrayim and her king. His son Yiskach also did so when he went to Gerar and dwelt there, and his strength prevailed over the army of Avimelech, king of the Pelishim. He also thought of making the kingdom of the Pelishim stumble in saying that Rivkah, his woman, was a sister. Yaakov also dealt treacherously with his brother and took from his hand his birthright and his blessing. He went then to Padam Aram, to the house of Laban, his mother's brother, and cunningly obtained from him his daughter, his cattle, and all belonging to him, and fled away and returned to the land of Canaan to his father. His son sold their brother Joseph, who went down to Mitzrayim and became a slave, and was placed in prison house for 12 years, until the former Pharaoh dreamed dreams and withdrew him from the prison house and magnified him above all the princes of Mitzrayim on account of his interpreting his dreams to him. And when Elohim caused a famine throughout the land, to send for and brought his father and all his brothers and the whole of his house his father's household and supported them without price or reward and bought the Mitzrayim for slaves. Now therefore, my lord king, behold, this child has risen up in their stead in Mitzrayim to do according to their deeds and to trifle with every king, prince, and judge. If it please the king, let us now spill his blood upon the ground, lest he grow up and take away the government from your hand, and the hope of Mitzrayim perish after he shall have reigned. And Bilam said to the king, let us moreover call all the judges of Mitzrayim and the wise men thereof, and let us know if the judgment of death is due to this boy, as you say, and then we will slay him. And Pharaoh sent and called for all the wise men of Mitzrayim, and they came before the king, and an angel of Yahweh came amongst them, and he was like one of the wise men of Mitzrayim. And the king said to the wise men, surely you have heard that this every boy who is in the house has done, and thus has Bilam judged in the matter. Now judge you also, and see what is due to the boy for the act he has committed. And the angel, who seemed like one of the wise men of Pharaoh, answered and said as follows, before all the wise men of Mitzrayim, and before the king and the princes, if it please the king, let the king send for men who shall bring before him an onyx stone and a coal of fire, and place them before the child. And if the child shall stretch forth his hand and take the onyx stone, then we shall know that the wisdom has the youth done all that he has done, and we must slay him. But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, then shall we know that it was not with knowledge that he did this thing, and he shall live. And the thing seemed good in the eyes of the king and the princes. So the king did according to the word of the angel of Yahweh. And the king ordered the onyx stone and coal to be brought to the place before Moshe. And they placed the boy before them. And the lad endeavored to stretch forth his hand to the onyx stone. But the angel of Yahweh took his hand and placed it upon the coal. And the coal became extinguished in his hand. And he lifted it up and put it in his mouth and burned part of his lip and part of his tongue. And he became heavy in mouth and tongue. And when the king and princes saw this, they knew that Moshe had not acted with wisdom in taking the crown from the king's head. So the king and princes refrained from slaying the child. So Moshe remained in Pharaoh's house growing up, and Yahweh was with him. And while the boy was in the king's house, he was robed in purple, and he grew amongst the children of the king. And when Moshe grew up in the king's house, Bathia, the daughter of Pharaoh, considered him as a son. And all the household of Pharaoh honored him, and all the men of Mitzrayim were afraid of him. And the daily went forth and came into the land of Goshen, where his brethren and the children of Yisrael were. And Moshe saw him daily in shortness of breath and hard labor. And Moshe asked him, saying, wherefore is this labor meted out unto you day by day? And they told him all that had befallen them, and all the injunctions which Pharaoh had put upon them before his birth. And they told him all the counsels which Balaam, the son of Beor, had counseled against them, and what he had also counseled against them in order to slay him when he had taken the king's crown from off his head. And when Moshe heard these things, his anger was kindled against Balaam, and he sought to kill him, and he was in ambush for him day by day. And Balaam was afraid of Moshe, and he and his two sons rose up and went forth from Mitzrayim, and they fled and delivered their souls and betook themselves to the land of Cush, to Kikanan, king of Cush. And Moshe was in the king's house, going out and coming in. Yahweh gave him favor in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all the servants, and in the eyes of the people of Mitzrayim. and they loved Moshe exceedingly. And the day arrived when Moshe went to Goshen to see his brethren, that he saw the children of Yisrael in the burdens and the hard labor, and Moshe was grieved on their account. And Moshe returned to Mitzrayim, and came to the house of Pharaoh, and came before the king. And Moshe bowed down before the king. And Moshe said to Pharaoh, I pray you, my lord, I have come to seek a small request from you. Turn not away my face empty. And Pharaoh said unto him, Speak. And Moshe said unto Pharaoh, Let there be given unto your servants, the children of Yisrael, who are in Goshen, 1 day of rest therein from their labor. And the king answered Moshe and said, Behold, I have lifted up your face in this thing to grant your request. And Pharaoh ordered a proclamation to be issued throughout Mitzrayim and Goshen, saying, To you, all the children of Yisrael, thus says the king, for 6 days you shall do your work and labor, but on the 7th day you shall rest, and shall not perform any work. Thus shall you do all the days, as the king of Moshe, the son of Bethiah, have commanded. And Moshe rejoiced at this thing which the king had granted to him, and all the children of Yisrael did as Moshe ordered them. For this thing was from Yahweh to the children of Yisrael, for Yahweh had begun to remember the children of Yisrael to save them for the sake of their fathers. And Yahweh was with Moshe, and his fame went throughout Mitzrayim. And Moshe became great in the eyes of all the Mitzrayim, and in the eyes of all the children of Yisrael, seeking good for his people, Yisrael, and speaking words of peace regarding them to the king. And when Moshe was 18 years old, he desired to see his father and mother, and he went to them to Goshen. And when Moshe had come to Goshen, he came to the place where the children of Yisrael were engaged in work, and he observed their burdens, and he saw a Mitzri smiting one of his Hebrew brothers. And when the man who was beaten saw Moshe, he ran to him for help. For the man Moshe was greatly respected in the house of Pharaoh. And he said to him, My lord, attend to me. This Mitzri came to my house in the night, bound me, and came to my woman in the presence, and now he seeks to take my life away. And when Moshe heard this wicked thing, his anger was kindled against the Mitzri, and he turned this way and the other. And when he saw there was no man there, he smote the Mitzri, and he hid him in the sand, and delivered the Evri from the hand of him that smote him. And the Evri went to his house, and Moshe returned to his home, and went forth, and came back to the king's house. And when the man had returned home, he thought of repudiating his woman, for it was not right in the house of Yaakov for any man to come to his woman after she had been defiled. And the woman went and told her brothers, and the woman's brothers sought to slay him, and fled to his house and escaped. And on the 2nd day, Moshe went forth to his brethren, and saw, and behold, 2 men were quarreling. And he said to the wicked one, Why do you smite your neighbor? And he answered him and said to him, Who has set you for a prince and judge over us? Do you think to slay me as you did slay the Mitzri? And Moshe was afraid, and he said, Surely the thing is known? And Pharaoh heard of this affair, and he ordered Moshe to be slain. So Elohim sent his angel, and he appeared unto Pharaoh in the likeness of a captain of the guard. And the angel of Yahweh took the sword from the hand of the captain of the guard, and took his head off with it. For the likeness of the captain of the guard was turned into the likeness of Moshe. And the angel of Yahweh took hold of the right hand of Moshe, and brought him forth from Mitzrayim, and placed him from without the borders of Mitzrayim, a distance of 40 days' journey. And Aharon and his brother alone remained in the land of Mitzrayim. And he prophesied to the children of Yisrael, saying, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of your ancestors, throw away each man the abominations of his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Mitzrayim. And the children of Yisrael rebelled and would not hearken to Aharon at that time. And Yahuwah thought to destroy them, were it not that Yahuwah remembered the covenant which he had made with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. In those days, the hand of Pharaoh continued to be severe against the children of Yisrael, and he crushed and oppressed them until the time when Elohim sent forth his word and took notice of them. And it was in those days that there was a great war between the children of Cush and the children of the east and Aram, and they rebelled against the king of Cush. In those days they were. So Kenanus, king of Cush, went forth with all the children of Cush, a people numerous as the sand, and he went to fight against Aram and the children of the east, to bring them under subjection. And when Kenanus went out, he left Balaam, the magician, with his 2 sons to guard the city, and the lowest sort of people of the land. So Kechanus went forth to Aram and the children of the east, and he fought against them and smote them. And they all fell down wounded before Kechanus and his people. And he took many of them captive, and he brought them under subjection, as at first. And he encamped upon their land to take tribute from them as usual. And Balaam, the son of Beor, when the king of Cush had left him to guard the city and the poor of the city, he rose up and advised with people of the land to rebel against King Kecanias, not to let him enter into the city where he should come home. And the people of the land hearkened to him, and they swore to him and made him king over them, and his 2 sons for captains of the army. So they rose up and raised the walls of the city at the 2 corners, and they built an exceedingly strong building. And at the 3rd corner, they dug ditches without number between the city and the river, which surrounded the whole land of Cush. And they made the waters of the river burst forth there. At the 4th corner, they collected numerous serpents by their incantations and enchantments, and they fortified the city and dwelt therein, and no one went out or before them. And Kechanus fought against Aram and the children of the east, and he subdued them as before, and they gave him their usual tribute, and he went and returned to his land. And when Kechanus, the king of Cush, approached his city, and all the captains of the forces with them, they lifted up their eyes and saw that the walls of the city were built up and greatly elevated. So the men were astonished at this. And they said one to another, It is because they saw that they were delayed in battle and were greatly afraid of us. Therefore have they done this thing and raised the city walls and fortified them, so that the kings of Canaan might not come in battle against them. So the king and the troops approached the city door, and they looked up, and behold, all the gates of the city were closed. And they called out the sentinels, saying, Open unto us, that we may enter the city. But the sentinels refused to open to them by the order of Balaam the magician, their king. They suffered them not to enter their city. So they raised a battle with them opposite the city gate, and 130 men of the army of Kechanus fell upon that day. And on the next day they continued to fight, and they fought at the side of the river. They endeavored to pass, but were not able. So some of them sank in the pits and died. So the king ordered them to cut down the trees to make rafts upon which they might pass to them, and they did so. And when they came to the place of the ditches, the waters revolved by mills, and 200 men upon 10 rafts were drowned. And on the 3rd day they came into the fight at the side where the serpents were, but they could not approach there, for the serpents slew of them 170 men, and they ceased fighting against Cush. And they besieged Cush for 9 years. No person came out or in. At that time that the war and the siege were against Cush, Moshe fled from Mitzrayim, from Pharaoh, who sought to kill him for having slain the Mitzrayim. And Moshe was 18 years old when he fled from Mitzrayim, from the presence of Pharaoh, and he fled and escaped to the camp of Kikanos, which at that time was besieging Cush. And Moshe was 9 years in the camp of Kikanos, king of Cush, all the time they were besieging Cush, and Moshe went out and came in with them. And the king and princes and all fighting men loved Moshe, for he was great and worthy. His stature was like a noble lion. His face was like the sun, and his strength was like that of a lion. And he was counselor to the king. And at the end of 9 years, Kikanos was seized with a mortal disease, and his illness prevailed over him, and he died on the 7th day. So his servants embalmed him and carried him and buried him from opposite the city gate to the north of the land of Mitzrayim. And they built over him an elegant, strong, and high building, and they placed great stones below. And the king's scribes engraved upon these stones all the might of their king Kikanos and all his battles which he had fought. Behold, they are written there at this day. Now, after the death of Kikanos, king of Cush, it grieved his men and troops greatly on account of the war. So they said one to the other, "Give us counsel. What are we to do at this time, as we have resided in the wilderness 9 years away from our homes? If we say we will fight against the city, many of us will fall wounded or killed. And if we remain here in the siege, we shall also die. For now, all the kings of Aram and all the children of the east will hear that our king is dead, and they will attack us suddenly in the hostile manner, and they will fight against us and leave no remnant of us. Now, therefore, let us go and make a king over us, and let us remain in siege until the city is delivered up to us." And they wished to choose on that day a man for king from the army of Kikanos, and they found no object of their choice like Moshe to reign over them. And they hastened and stripped off each man his garment and cast them upon the ground. And they made a great heap and placed Moshe thereon. And they rose up and blew with trumpets and called out before him and said, "May the king live, may the king live." And all the people and nobles swore unto him to give him for a woman Adonai, the Cushite woman of Kikanos. And they made Moshe king over them on that day. And all the people of Cush issued a proclamation on that day, saying, "Every man must give something to Moshe of what is in his possession." And they spread out a sheet upon the heap, and every man cast into it something of what he had, one a gold earring, and the other a coin. Also of onyx stones, bdellium, pearls, and marble did the children of Cush cast unto Moshe upon the heap, also silver and gold in great abundance. And Moshe took all the silver and gold, all the vessels, and the bdellium of onyx stones, which all the children of Cush had given him, and he placed them amongst his treasures. And Moshe reigned over the children of Cush on that day, in the place of Kikanos, king of Cush. In the 55th year of the reign of Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, that is in the 157th year of Yashrael, going down to Mitzrayim, reigned Moshe in Cush. Moshe was 27 years old when he began to reign over Cush, and 40 years did he reign. And Yahweh granted Moshe favor and grace in the eyes of all the children of Cush. And the children of Cush loved him exceedingly. So Moshe was favored by Yahweh and by men. And in the 7th day of his reign, all the children of Cush assembled and came before Moshe and bowed down to him to the ground. And all the children spoke together in the presence of the king, saying, Give us counsel, that we may see what is to be done to this city. For it is now 9 years that we have been besieging around about the city and have not seen our children and our women. So the king answered them, saying, If you will hearken to my voice and all that I shall command you, then will Yahweh give the city into our hands, and we shall subdue it. For if we fight with them, as in the former battle, which we had with them before the king's death of Kekanas, many of us will fall down wounded as before. Now therefore, behold, here is counsel for you in this manner. If you will hearken to my voice, then will the city be delivered into our hands. So all the forces answered the king, saying, All that our Lord shall command, that will we do. And Moshe said unto them, Pass through and proclaim a voice into the whole camp, unto all the people, saying, Thus says the king, Go into the forest and bring with you of the young ones of the stork, each man a young one in his hand. And any person transgressing the word of the king, who shall not bring his young one, he shall die, and the king will take all belonging to him. And when you shall bring them, they shall be in your keeping. You shall rear them until they grow up, and you shall teach them to dart upon, as is the way of the young ones of the hawk. So all the children of Cush heard the words of Moshe, and they rose up and caused a proclamation to be issued throughout the camp, saying, Unto you, all the children of Cush, the king's order is that you all go together to the forest and catch there the young storks, each man his young one in his hand, and you shall bring them home. And any person violating the order that the king shall die, and the king will take all that belongs to him. And all the people did so, and they went out to the wood, and they climbed the fir trees and caught each man a young one in his hand, all the young of the storks, and they brought them into the desert and reared them by order of the king, and they taught them to dart upon, similar to the young hawks. And after the young storks were reared, the king ordered them to be hungered for 3 days, and all the people did so. And on the 3rd day, the king said unto them, Strengthen yourselves and become valiant men, and put on each man his armor, and gird on his sword, and ride each man his horse, and take each his young stork in his hand. And we will raise up and fight against the city at the place where the serpents are. And all the people did as the king had ordered. And they took each man his young one in his hand, and they went away. And when they came to the place of the serpents, the king said to them, Send forth each man his young stork upon the serpents. And they sent forth each man his young stork at the king's order. And the young storks ran upon the serpents, and they devoured them, and all destroyed them out of that place. And when the king and the people had seen that all their serpents were destroyed in that place, all the people set up a great shout, and they approached and fought against the city, and took it, and subdued it, and they entered the city. And there died on that day 1,100 men of the people of the city, all that inhabited the city, but of the people besieging not one died. So all the children of Cush went each to his home, to his woman and children, and to all belonging to him. And Bilham the magician, when he saw that the city was taken, he opened the gate, and he and his 2 sons and 8 brothers fled and returned to Mitzrayim, to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim. They are the sorcerers and magicians who are mentioned in the cipher of the Torah, standing against Moshe, when Yahweh brought the plagues upon the Mitzrayim. So Moshe took the city by his wisdom, and the children of Cush placed him on the throne instead of Kikanos, king of Cush. And they placed the royal crown upon his head, and they gave him for a woman Adonai the Cushi queen, woman of Kikanis, and Moshe feared Yahweh Elohim of his fathers, so that he came not to her, nor did he turn his eyes to her. For Moshe remembered how Abraham had made his servant Eleazar swear, saying unto him, You shall not take a woman from the daughters of Keniyam, for my son Yitzchak, also that Yitzchak did when Yaakov had fled from his brother, when he commanded him, saying, You shall not take a woman from the daughters of Canaan, nor make alliance with any of the children of Ham. For Yahweh Eloheinu gave Ham, the son of Noach, and his children and all his seed as slaves to the children of Shem, and to the children of Japheth, and unto their seed after them for slaves forever. Therefore Moshe turned not his heart nor his eyes to the woman of Kenias all the days that he reigned over Cush. And Moshe feared Yahweh Eloheinu all of his life, and Moshe walked before Yahweh in truth with all his heart and soul. He turned not from the right way all the days of his life. He declined not from the way either to the right or to the left, in which Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had walked. And Moshe strengthened himself in the kingdom of the children of Cush, and he guided the children of Cush with his unusual wisdom, and Moshe prospered in his kingdom. And at that time, Aram and the children of the east heard that Kenias, king of Cush, had died. So Aram and the children of the east rebelled against Cush in those days. And Moshe gathered all the children of Cush, a people very mighty, about 30,000 men, and he went forth to fight with Aram and the children of the east. And they went at first to the children of the east, and when the children of the east heard their report, they went to meet him and engaged in battle with him. And the war was severe against the children of the east. So Yahweh gave all the children of the east unto the hand of Moshe, and about 300 men fell down slain. And all the children of the east turned back and retreated. So Moshe and the children of Cush followed them and subdued them and put a tax upon them, as was their custom. So Moshe and all the people with him passed from here to the land of Aram for battle. And the people of Aram also went to meet him, and they fought against him. And Yahweh delivered them into the hand of Moshe. And many of the men of Aram fell down wounded. And Aram also were subdued by Moshe and the people of Cush, and also gave their unusual tax. And Moshe brought Aram and the children of the east under subjection to the children of Cush, and Moshe and all the people who were with him turned to the land of Cush. And Moshe strengthened himself in the kingdom of the children of Cush, and Yahweh was with him, and all the children of Cush were afraid of him. In the end of the years died Shual, king of Edom, and Baal Hanan, the son of Akbor, reigned in his place. And in the 16th year of the reign of Moshe over Cush, Baal Hanan, the son of Akbor, reigned in the land of Edom over all the children of Edom for 38 years. In his days, Moab rebelled against the power of Edom, having been under Edom since the days of Hadad, the son of Bedad, who smote them in Midian and brought Moab under subjection to Edom. And when Baal Hanan, the son of Akbor, reigned over Edom, all the children of Moab withdrew their alliances from Edom. And Agnes, king of Africa, died in those days, and Asdrubal, his son, reigned in his stead. And in those days died Inus, king of the children of Kittim, and they buried him in his temple, which he had built for himself in the plain of Canopia, for a residence, and Latinus reigned in his stead. In the 22nd year of the reign of Moshe over the children of Cush, Latinus reigned over the children of Kittim 45 years. And he also built for himself a great and mighty tower, and he built therein an elegant temple for his residence, to conduct his government, as was the custom. In the 3rd year of his reign, he caused a proclamation to be made to all his skillful men, who made many ships for him. And Latinus assembled all his forces, and they came in ships, and went therein to fight with Asdrubal, son of Agnias, king of Africa. And they came to Africa, and engaged in battle with Asdrubal and his army. And Latinus prevailed over Asdrubal, and Latinus took from Asdrubal the aqueduct which his father had brought from the children of Kittim when he took Janah, the daughter of Uzzi, for a woman. So Latinus overthrew the bridge of the aqueduct and smote the whole army of Asdrubal, a severe blow. And the remaining strong men of Asdrubal strengthened themselves, and their hearts were filled with envy. And they courted death, and again engaged in battle with Latinus, king of Kittim. And the battle was severe upon all the men of Africa, and they fell wounded before Latinus and his people, and Asdrubal, the king, also fell in that battle. And the king Asdrubal had a very beautiful daughter, whose name was Ashpeziah, and all the men of Africa embroidered her likeness on the garments on account of her great beauty and comely appearance. And the men of Latinus saw Ashpeziah, the daughter of Asdrubal, and praised her unto Latinus their king. And Latinus ordered her to be brought to him, and Latinus took Ashpeziah for a woman, and turned back on his way to Kittim. And it was after the death of Asdrubal, son of Agnias, that Latinus had turned back to his land from the battle, that all the inhabitants of Africa rose up and took Anibal, the son of Agnias, the younger brother of Asdrubal, and made him king instead of his brother over the whole land of Africa. And when he reigned, he resolved to go to Kittim to fight with the children of Kittim, to avenge the cause of Asdrubal, his brother, and the cause of the inhabitants of Africa, and he did so. And he made many ships, and he came thereon with his whole army, and he went to Kittim. So Anibal fought with the children of Kittim, and the children of Kittim fell wounded before Anibal and his army, and Anibal avenged his brother's cause, and Anibal continued the war for 18 years with the children of Kittim. And Anibal dwelt in the land of Kittim and encamped there for a long time. And Anibal smote the children of Kittim very severely, and he slew their great men and princes. And of the rest of the people he smote about 80,000 men. And at the end of days and years, Anibal returned to his land of Africa, and he reigned securely in the place of Asdrubal, his brother.